I'm Noel,
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Cole.
and we're living overseas on a dime.
That's a Jen. So yeah.
Hi there, and welcome to Living Overseas on a Dime. I hope everyone's doing well. And today we have an interesting topic that's hit the news a fair bit, and that's the Great Resignation. Most specifically, how I joined the Great Resignation. Or if you want to give it a different title, how to retire overseas, and the subtopic being money. If you guys have been watching some of our other videos, you heard a little bit about our background, but pretty much we weren't really all that different from anyone else. From our 20s into our almost late 30s, I'd say 37, 38, we pretty much lived a lifestyle where we spent a lot of money. And really, we lived overseas. I was in grad school, and a lot of the time we did not in any way, shape, or form think about how much money we were spending. Really, we would just get all of our money and spend it. We were living life and not thinking really at all about, hey, maybe we should save some of this money. And in 2010, we moved back to Winnipeg, which is where we were from originally. And I got a job with the city of Winnipeg. So that we were still, at that point, not doing so great, spending a lot of money, but that job and in 2011, the birth of our son, Cole, really led to us kind of saying, okay, what are we doing? Like, where are we? And, all of a sudden we realized, wow, we were in pretty serious debt. And, we got up to almost $40,000 in credit card debt. And it wasn't until March 2015. It started in February 2014 when I got a promotion at my job. But then it was March 2015 where we got very serious about paying off our debt. And I'll try and put a video here or here, a link to our previous video where I talk about paying off that debt and what exactly we did. So at that point, we were at pretty much $40,000 in debt. So that was, it was bad. It wasn't as bad as some people, but it was pretty bad. Especially considering at that point, I wasn't making, in the beginning, I wasn't making much beyond minimum wage, but I really did get up to the point where with my promotion, I was starting to make better money. Not six figures or anything, but better money. So really, this video isn't going to be about being frugal or how we paid off that debt, but more so how we got from that minus 40,000, or more so zero, up to the point where we are now, which is at financial independence. So we went from March 2015 up to November 2016. We paid off our debt, and it was pretty much every extra cent that we had that we got from my paycheck, we put into that. So once that was paid off, we had kind of set up a certain kind of routine with our money, and any extra money we would use to pay off the debt. So once that was paid off, it wasn't a difficult segue into going into putting our money into investments. So some people may think, oh my God, investments, that's so risky. And you know what? In the short term, that is true. Long term, it's a bit of a different story. And I'm not here to convince anyone. And in no way is this video investing advice. This is just my experience. So, the idea is that, especially from a lot of the financial independence retire early folks, pretty much you take your extra money and you invest it into index funds. Now, there are two different types of index funds. There's the mutual fund, and then there's the ETF. Now, the ETF functions much like a stock, but has much lower fees. And what I mean by functions like a stock is you have to buy or sell it on the stock market, and it has a price. And if you have your own trading account, say for mine, I think it's $10 per purchase, you'll have to pay that $10 to get the account. So mutual funds are a bit different. You don't have to pay to to buy them, but you do have to pay to hold them. So often there is a fee, which is a fair amount higher than ETFs, to hold on to that mutual fund in there. So, I followed the advice of many financial independence people, Mr. Money Moustache, various others. I think the one I first stumbled upon was the couch potato investing, which was very straightforward. It was put, I think it was like 60% into the overall index, and then 10 into Canadian and 10 into international, and the remainder into bonds. So we started doing that. Now, this is very much kind of like the general idea when it comes to financial independence, retire early, which is also called FIRE. So, over time, as my paycheck went up, then the amount we put in went up. And the general idea for this is when you arrive at the point when you have a total accumulated value of 25 times your annual spending, or 4% of your total for what you want to have as your yearly income, then you've hit your FIRE goal and you can retire early. Now, the thing is that we didn't do that at all. Well, not at all, but we didn't 100% do that. Let me go into that now. Okay, so the reality was a fair bit different. And I'm not going to pretend that what we did and more what I did wasn't risky at first. But the reality was that in the beginning, it wasn't really all that risky because we just didn't have very much money. And at that point, our horizon for retiring was 10 years away, if not longer. Like, a lot of it was, if we get a little bit of extra money, that's good, right? That's good. We had no idea that in 3 or 4 years we would be at the point where we could retire. So what we were doing is still 50% of the money that we got would go into index funds. Now the remainder at that point, we put into cannabis stocks. Now this was around the end of 2016, early 2017, I think. So nothing was really going at that point, and a lot of these stocks really were not very expensive, like $10 a stock or something. And then on top of that, any of our found money, like income tax and things along those lines, we also did the same thing. We put them into cannabis stocks. Now, some people still are holding on to cannabis stocks, and I did nothing of the sort. Pretty much, I think it was around mid-2019, I sold probably around 2/3, and it was beginning around 2/3, and kept holding on to it for a little bit, and then getting towards the end, we sold the remainder. So that almost, I think, doubled our money, which at that point wasn't a heck of a lot, but still it all of a sudden built a very solid foundation when it hit towards the end of 2019. Now at that point, my income continued to go up, and my wife's business's income continued to go up. And now what we did at that point was we did what I call the modified Buffett method. Now, some people are like, what do you mean? How is there a modified Buffett? Well, he generally recommends that you continue to do indexes for your average investor, which is still what, for the most part, after that point, we did and still do. However, in my mind, like Warren Buffett doesn't really believe in tech stocks in the same way that a lot of young people do. Like I know every day I utilize Google, I utilize YouTube. Most people utilize Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. Every day people use Amazon. So I took a large portion of our investment money, which previously had been in marijuana stocks, and I put it into those stocks as well as into the index. So at that point, I'd say about maybe a third of our money was in Google, Facebook, and Amazon, and the remainder was in index funds. Now, okay, so even that in itself, if you've looked at the last year for Google, it has done very, very well. Amazon also has done very, very well, as has Facebook. But then something else happened. In March 2020, actually more like February, the market started to crash. And like many people who are into financial independence, we had and do have a decent emergency fund. So at that point, I took pretty close to the entirety of the emergency fund and sunk it in Google, Facebook, and the index fund. Now, we still had a backup credit card line of credit if anything really crazy happened. But at that point, I put, a fair amount of money into those three. And it was around March 2020. So it wasn't when the market totally crashed, but it was pretty darn close. So fast forward a year and change. And now when you're looking at what happened, it was, pretty smart, I guess. I would also say pretty darn lucky. So you know what, I'm in no way recommending you try and replicate this, because we got pretty lucky at some pretty important times. And then when it came into the summer and I got my pension estimate done and I combined it with the money that we had, I looked at it and said, these combined, it's enough. It really is enough. And that's an important question you need to ask yourself. How much is enough? Because enough is a hard question a lot of the time in our materialist capitalist world. And many people want more, want enough to be able to retire on $100,000 a year. If that's what you want to do, that's cool. That's not for us. We have a relatively frugal lifestyle and we enjoy ourselves on that. So now with that combined with when we sell our house and especially live overseas, which we love doing. We love traveling. We love Asia. We love Latin America. And for us, we looked at the countries we know, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, Mexico, and we looked at them. We said, you know what? We can live on this over the year there. That's not an issue. And if the markets crash, well, then we'll figure something out. Maybe set up a business again. Maybe work a bit part-time doing either some sort of editing or academic marking or even teaching, though that's a bit of a different situation as I've talked with in this video over here. But, there are a lot of options. And if times got tough, like ultimately I have no issues working and neither does Jenny. So that's what it is. That's how we got to the point where, you know what, I said, okay, let's walk the talk. And that's when I said, it's time. It's time to put in my resignation. It's time to be part of the Great Resignation. And you know what, I think everyone is feeling tired. Everyone has felt what the last couple years has done to us emotionally and psychologically. And you know what, today is my very first day officially retired. And it feels fantastic. It really does. So, you know what? If you're thinking of it and you run the numbers, definitely run the numbers. Don't do this out of just like, I'm out of here sort of thing. Well, or maybe depends on how bad your job is. But run the numbers, have a look, and, have a hard think. Is this what you want to do? If so, go for it, right? Because ultimately, you got the one life to live. And, you know what? If it doesn't work out, you can always go back to work. So that's it for today. That's my story of my Great Resignation. So I hope it was of interest and hopefully see you next time. Happy travels.